Mira had always believed that if you worked hard enough and loved something deeply enough, the world would eventually notice. She held onto this belief like a child holds onto a favorite blanket. It kept her warm during the cold nights of doubt. It gave her hope when hope felt foolish. For 8 years, she stood on stages across the country. Not in the spotlight. Never in the spotlight. She was the voice you heard but never saw, the backup singer who made the lead sound better than she actually was, night after night. Mira would stand 3 steps behind the main microphone, her voice blending into the music like sugar dissolving into water. Essential, but invisible. The band was called Silver Dreams, a pop group that had one hit song 5 years ago and had been riding that wave ever since. The lead singer, a woman named Tanya, had the kind of face that looked good on magazine covers. She had the smile, the hair, the confidence that made people want to watch her. What she did not have was a voice that could carry a room on its own. That was where Mira came in. Every performance, Mira would harmonize in ways that lifted Tanya's thin vocals into something that actually moved people. The audience never knew. The fans never realized. They would scream for Tanya, reach for Tanya, cry when Tanya sang the ballads, and Mira would stand in the shadows, giving everything she had, knowing that the applause was never meant for her. She told herself she was okay with it. She told herself that being part of something bigger was enough. She told herself that her time would come. At 34 years old, Mira finally decided to ask for what she wanted. The band had a big anniversary concert coming up. 10 years of Silver Dreams. It was going to be their largest show yet, with almost 15,000 people expected to attend. For weeks, Mira practiced a song in secret. A solo piece she had written herself, something personal. Something that came from a place so deep inside her that singing it felt like opening a wound. She wanted just 3 minutes on that stage. 3 minutes to step out of the shadows. 3 minutes to show the world what she could really do. The day she asked for it, she wore her best outfit. She rehearsed her words in front of the mirror that morning. She walked into the manager's office with her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. His name was Victor. A large man with a permanent frown and a way of looking at people like they were insects he was considering stepping on. He had managed Silver Dreams from the beginning, and he ran the operation with an iron grip. Mira explained her idea. She talked about the anniversary concert. She mentioned her years of dedication. She asked, as politely and professionally as she could, for a small solo segment in the show. Victor did not even let her finish. He laughed. Not a kind laugh. Not the laugh of someone who found something genuinely funny. It was the laugh of someone who wanted to make another person feel small. "You want a solo?" he said, still laughing. "Mira, come on. Let's be realistic here. You are not solo material. You never have been. You are background. That is what you are good for. That is all you will ever be good for." The words hit her like a slap. She stood there, frozen, unable to respond. Her carefully rehearsed speech crumbled to dust in her throat. Victor leaned back in his chair. "I do not know where you got this idea that you deserve more. You should be grateful you have a job at all. There are 100 girls out there who would kill to be in your position. Do not forget that." Mira left his office without saying another word. She went to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and cried until her eyes burned. Then she washed her face, fixed her makeup, and went back to rehearsal like nothing had happened. She thought that would be the end of it. A painful rejection, but something she could survive. She had survived disappointment before. She would survive it again. She was wrong. 1 week later, the entire band was called into a meeting. This was not unusual. They had meetings all the time to discuss schedules, upcoming shows, promotional events. Mira walked in, expecting the same boring announcements as always. Victor stood at the front of the room with a strange smile on his face. The kind of smile that made Mira's stomach turn. "I have an announcement to make," he said, effective immediately. "Mira is no longer part of Silver Dreams." The room went silent. Mira felt the blood drain from her face. "We have decided to move in a different direction," Victor continued, speaking as if Mira was not even in the room. Mira has become difficult to work with. She has developed an attitude problem. She no longer fits with the vision of this band. Mira wanted to scream. She wanted to stand up and tell everyone that this was a lie. That she had simply asked for a chance. One single chance. And this was her punishment for daring to want more. But her voice would not come. Her legs would not move. She sat there, paralyzed, as her entire career was destroyed in front of the people she had considered her family. And those people, her bandmates, the ones she had traveled with, performed with, shared meals and jokes and late-night conversations with for almost a decade, they said nothing. They looked at their phones. They stared at the table. They avoided her eyes like she had become a stranger. Not one person spoke up for her. Not one person asked Victor if this was fair. Not one person said goodbye. When the meeting ended, Mira walked to her locker and packed her things. It did not take long. A few personal items. A photo of her parents. A small notebook where she wrote her songs. Everything she had built over 8 years fit into a single cardboard box. She carried that box through the hallway, past the people she used to call friends, and out the front door. Nobody stopped her. Nobody wished her well. It was like she had never existed at all. The drive home was a blur. She did not remember the turns she took or the lights she stopped at. When she finally pulled into her driveway, she sat in the car for a long time, staring at nothing. The worst part was not the firing. The worst part was not Victor's cruel words or the silence of her bandmates. The worst part was the tiny voice in her head that whispered, maybe he was right. Maybe she really was just background. Maybe she had been foolish to ever dream of being anything more. That night, Mira put her guitar in the closet and closed the door. She told herself she was done with music. She told herself it was time to grow up and accept reality. She told herself that some dreams were not meant to come true. But late at night, when the house was quiet and she could not sleep, she could still hear the songs inside her. They knocked against her ribs like prisoners begging to be set free. She ignored them. She had learned her lesson. Wanting more only led to pain, or so she thought. The first week after losing her job, Mira stayed in bed. She told herself she was resting. She told herself she deserved a break after 8 years of constant work. But the truth was simpler and sadder. She did not know how to get up. She did not know what to do with herself when there was no rehearsal to attend, no stage to stand on, no song to prepare for. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages. Old friends asking what happened. People who had heard rumors, wanting to know the real story. She ignored all of them. She did not have the energy to explain. She did not have the words. By the second week, the reality of her situation started to sink in. Her rent was due. Her car payment was coming up. The small savings account she had built over the years would not last forever. She needed to work. Mira sat down at her kitchen table with her laptop and started searching for jobs in the music industry. She was a trained vocalist with nearly a decade of professional experience. Surely someone would want her. She applied to everything she could find. Studio session work, commercial jingles, backup positions for other artists, wedding bands looking for singers, even church choirs that paid a small stipend. She spent hours crafting each application, writing about her experience, attaching clips of her performances, explaining why she would be a perfect fit. Days passed, then weeks. Her inbox remained empty. At first, Mira thought it was just bad luck. The industry was competitive. These things took time. But as the rejections started trickling in, a pattern began to emerge. Some were polite but vague. Others did not bother with politeness at all. One studio manager told her directly that they had heard things about her and did not want to take the risk. Victor had done more than fire her. He had made sure she could not work anywhere else. The music industry is a small world. People talk, rumors spread faster than truth, and the story that had spread about Mira painted her as a troublemaker, someone with an attitude problem, someone who was difficult and ungrateful. It did not matter that none of it was true. It did not matter that she had given 8 years of loyal service without a single complaint. The lie was out there now, and it followed her everywhere she went. By the third month, Mira's savings were nearly gone. She had sold some of her equipment to cover rent. She had canceled every subscription she did not absolutely need. She ate cheap noodles and toast, and pretended she was not hungry when her stomach growled at night. The hardest call she ever made was to her mother. Mira's mother had never understood her choice to pursue music. When Mira was young and full of dreams, her mother would shake her head and talk about stability, about security, about real jobs that paid real money. She wanted Mira to become a nurse or a teacher or an accountant, something respectable, something safe. Mira had disappointed her by chasing what her mother called a fantasy. And now, at 34 years old, she had to call that same woman and admit that the fantasy had fallen apart. "I need to come home for a while," Mira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just until I figure things out." Her mother did not say "I told you so." Not with words, anyway. But the silence on the other end of the phone said it loudly enough. Moving back into her childhood bedroom felt like stepping backwards through time. The same faded wallpaper. The same narrow bed. The same window that looked out onto the same quiet street. Mira was 34 years old, and she was right back where she started. All those years of work, all those sacrifices, all those nights of believing in something bigger, and she had ended up exactly nowhere. Her mother was not cruel about it. She gave Mira space. She did not ask too many questions. But every now and then, she would make small comments that cut deeper than any insult. "You know, the hospital is always hiring. Good benefits, steady hours. My friend's daughter just got promoted. She is a dental hygienist now. Very stable career. Music was a nice hobby, but you are too old for hobbies now. Time to think about your future." Mira would nod and say nothing. What could she say? Her mother was not wrong. The evidence was all around them. Mira had bet everything on music, and music had thrown her away. After a month of living at home, Mira knew she needed to do something. She could not just sit in her room and disappear. She needed money. She needed a reason to get out of bed. She needed to feel like she still existed in the world. She got a job at a grocery store a few miles from her mother's house. The night shift. Stocking shelves from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. It was the kind of work that required nothing from her brain and everything from her body. Lift the boxes, open the boxes, put the items on the shelves, repeat until the sun comes up. She chose the night shift on purpose. During the day, she might run into someone she knew, an old classmate, a distant relative, someone who remembered her as the girl who was going to make it big in music. She could not bear the thought of those conversations. The awkward smiles, the pitying looks, the questions she did not want to answer. At night, the store was empty and quiet. Just Mira and a few other workers who kept to themselves. She could disappear into the rhythm of the work and pretend she was nobody. Just a woman stacking cans of soup at 3 in the morning. No past, no future. Just this. The guitar stayed in the closet. She had brought it with her when she moved, though she was not sure why. Some nights, she would look at the closet door and feel something stir inside her chest. An ache. A longing. The ghost of a song she would never sing. She always turned away. One evening, before her shift, Mira ran into an old acquaintance at the gas station. A woman she had known back in her performing days. Someone who used to come to the shows and cheer from the crowd. "Mira, is that you?" The woman's face lit up with surprise. "I have not seen you in forever. Are you still doing the music thing?" Mira felt her throat tighten. She forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "No," she said. "I moved on from that." "Oh." The woman looked uncomfortable, like she had accidentally stepped on something fragile. "Well, that is too bad. You had such a beautiful voice." Had. Past tense. Like Mira's voice was something that used to exist but did not anymore. That night at work, Mira dropped a box of glass jars and watched them shatter across the floor. She stood there, staring at the mess, and felt nothing at all. One of her coworkers came over with a broom and helped her clean it up. "You okay?" he asked. Fine, she said. Just clumsy. But she was not fine. She had not been fine for months. She was moving through life like a ghost, going through the motions, saying the right words, pretending to be a person who still had something to live for. Inside, she felt hollow. Empty, like all the music had drained out of her and left nothing behind but silence. 6 months passed this way, then 7, then 8. Mira stopped counting. The days blurred together into one long, gray fog. Wake up. Eat something. Go to work. Come home. Sleep. Repeat. There was no joy in it. No meaning, just survival. She had almost convinced herself that this was her life now. That the girl who used to sing was gone forever. That some dreams really do die. And when they die, they take a part of you with them. And then her phone rang. It was her cousin, Priya. The one family member who had always believed in her. The one person who never made her feel like a failure. They had not spoken in weeks. Maybe months. Mira had been avoiding everyone, and Priya had given her the space she seemed to need. But now Priya was calling, and something in Mira told her to answer. I need your help, Priya said. Her voice was shaking. I know this is crazy, and I know you have not been singing, but I do not know who else to ask. Mira listened, and for the first time in 8 months, she felt something other than emptiness. She felt afraid, but underneath the fear, buried so deep she almost did not recognize it, there was something else, a tiny spark, waiting to catch fire. Priya was getting married in 3 days. 3 days. And the band she had hired 6 months ago had just canceled. They said their lead guitarist broke his hand. Priya explained through the phone, her voice cracking with stress. Some accident at his day job. They cannot perform without him. They are refunding my deposit. But that does not help me. My wedding is in 3 days. Mira, 3 days. What am I supposed to do? Mira listened quietly, her heart beating faster with every word. She already knew where this conversation was heading. She could feel it coming like a storm cloud moving across the sky. I know you stopped singing, Priya continued. I know things have been hard for you. I would never ask if I was not completely desperate. But you are the only person I know who can do this. You are the only one who can save my wedding. The words hung in the air between them. Mira wanted to say no. Every part of her screamed to say no. The thought of standing in front of people again, of opening her mouth and letting her voice out, made her chest feel tight and her hands feel cold. But this was Priya. Her little cousin who used to follow her around at family gatherings, begging to hear her sing. The girl who made homemade cards after every performance, decorating them with glitter and stickers and writing things like, "You are going to be famous someday," in wobbly letters. The woman who never once, not even after everything fell apart, made Mira feel like a failure. I do not know if I can, Mira said honestly. It has been so long. I am not sure I even remember how. You remember, Priya said softly. You could never forget. It is part of who you are. Mira closed her eyes. The fear was still there, thick and heavy in her chest. But underneath it, she felt something else. Something she had not felt in 8 months. A tiny flutter of want. A whisper of maybe. Just a few songs, Priya said. Nothing fancy. The ceremony is at a vineyard outside the city. Small crowd. Maybe 200 people. You could play during the cocktail hour and maybe do one song for the first dance. That is all I am asking. Please, Mira, I am begging you. 200 people. The number echoed in Mira's mind. 200 pairs of eyes watching her. 200 people who would see her if she failed, who would hear her if her voice cracked or forgot the words or simply refused to come out at all. But 200 people would also hear her if she succeeded. 200 people might feel something because of her music. 200 people might remember her voice long after the night was over. Okay, Mira heard herself say. The word came out before she could stop it. Okay, I will do it. Priya burst into tears of relief on the other end of the line. She thanked Mira over and over, promising that she would never forget this. that Mira was saving her life, that this meant everything. Mira listened and made the right sounds and said the right things. But inside, she was already panicking. What had she just agreed to? After she hung up, Mira sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the closet door. Her guitar was in there, waiting. She had not touched it in 8 months. She had barely looked at it. Every time she thought about playing, she remembered Victor's words. Background. That is all you will ever be good for. The memory was enough to make her turn away. But now she had no choice. She had made a promise. And Mira, despite everything that had happened to her, was not the kind of person who broke promises. She walked to the closet. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. She pulled the door open, and there it was. Her guitar, an old acoustic she had bought with her first real paycheck from the band, back when everything still felt possible. The wood was dusty. The strings probably needed changing. But it was still beautiful to her. It was still hers. Mira carried it to the bed and sat down. She held it in her lap, feeling its familiar weight. Her fingers found the neck, found the frets, found the positions they had known for most of her life. She took a breath, and then, slowly, she began to play. The first few notes were rough. Her fingers were stiff and clumsy, tripping over strings they used to dance across. It sounded terrible, nothing like the music she used to make. Mira felt her eyes burn with frustration. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe she had lost it. Maybe whatever gift she once had was gone forever. But she kept playing. She pushed through the wrong notes, and the awkward pauses, and the moments of doubt. She played until her fingertips started to hurt, until the rust began to shake loose, until the music started to sound like music again. An hour passed, then 2. Her mother knocked on the door at some point, asking if she was okay. Mira called out that she was fine, and kept playing. The sun went down. The room grew dark. Still, she played. By midnight, her fingers were raw and her shoulders ached. But something had shifted. Something had cracked open inside her. The music was still there, buried deep, hidden away, protected from all the pain and rejection and silence. But still there, still alive, still hers. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Mira practiced constantly. She chose songs she knew by heart, songs that did not require a band or backup or anything except her voice and her guitar. She rehearsed until her throat was sore and her fingers were blistered. But she also did something else, something she had not planned. She pulled out an old notebook, the one she had carried with her when she left the band. The one filled with songs she had written over the years. Songs she had never shared with anyone. Songs that came from places so deep inside her that singing them felt dangerous. One song in particular kept calling to her. She had written it during her darkest months, late at night when she could not sleep and the silence felt like it was crushing her. It was about being thrown away, about being told you are nothing, about losing your voice and wondering if you ever really had one at all. And it was about finding it again, about learning that the people who tried to silence you do not get to decide who you are. She had never performed it. She had never even finished it properly. But now, sitting in her childhood bedroom with her battered guitar and her bruised heart, she found the ending. The words came to her like they had been waiting all along, waiting for her to be ready to hear them. The night before the wedding, Mira could not sleep. She sat on her mother's back porch, wrapped in an old blanket, looking up at the stars, the same stars she used to wish on when she was a little girl, dreaming of stages and spotlights and crowds chanting her name. Those dreams felt so far away now, so naive, so impossible, but she was still here. After everything, she was still here, and she still had her voice. And tomorrow she was going to use it. Maybe nobody would care. Maybe the guests would talk through her performance, more interested in their drinks and their conversations than in some unknown woman with a guitar. Maybe she would mess up, forget the words, freeze in front of the crowd. Maybe it would all go wrong, or maybe, just maybe, something else would happen. Mira did not know what the future held. She did not know if tomorrow would change anything, or if it would just be another small moment lost in the noise of life. But for the first time in 8 months, she felt something that was not fear or sadness or emptiness. She felt ready. She played her new song one more time, alone on the porch with only the stars as her audience. Her voice drifted into the night, soft and true, carrying all the pain and hope and stubborn love she still had inside her. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove past. The world kept spinning, indifferent and endless. But Mira kept singing, and this time, she did not want to stop. The vineyard was more beautiful than Mira had imagined. Rolling hills stretched out in every direction, covered with rows and rows of grapevines that seemed to glow golden in the late afternoon sun. White tents dotted the property. Strings of tiny lights hung between wooden posts, waiting for darkness to make them sparkle. The air smelled like flowers and fresh grass, and something sweet that Mira could not name. She arrived 3 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Priya had arranged for her to set up near a small wooden stage at the edge of the main pavilion, where guests would gather for cocktails after the vows. It was not a big stage, just a simple platform with enough room for one person and a microphone stand. Nothing fancy. Nothing intimidating. At least, that is what Mira kept telling herself. She set up her equipment slowly, checking everything twice, then 3 times. Guitar, microphone, small amplifier, a bottle of water tucked beside her stool, a printed set list she had memorized days ago but brought anyway, just in case her mind went blank. As she worked, guests began to arrive. Cars pulled into the gravel parking lot. Families walked across the lawn, dressed in their finest clothes. Children ran between the tables, laughing and chasing each other. Old relatives greeted each other with hugs and kisses on cheeks. The vineyard slowly filled with people. And with every new face, Mira felt her stomach tighten a little more. 200 people, maybe more, all of them strangers, all of them about to watch her perform. She thought about running. The idea crossed her mind more than once. She could pack up her guitar, slip away through the back, send Priya an apologetic text saying she just could not do it. No one would blame her. No one even knew who she was. She was invisible here, just like she had always been. She could stay invisible. She could stay safe. But then she saw Priya. Her cousin was standing near the entrance of the main tent, wearing a white dress that flowed behind her like water. Her hair was pinned up with tiny flowers woven through it. Her eyes were bright with tears she was trying not to let fall. She looked beautiful. She looked terrified. She looked exactly how Mira felt. Priya caught Mira's eye from across the lawn and smiled. It was a small smile, shaky and vulnerable, but full of gratitude, full of trust. She believed in Mira. Even now. Even after everything. Mira could not run. She would not run. The ceremony was perfect. Priya and her partner exchanged vows under an archway covered in white roses. There were tears and laughter and the kind of love that makes everyone in the room believe in something bigger than themselves. Mira watched from the edge of the crowd, her guitar resting against her leg, waiting for her turn. When the ceremony ended and guests began moving toward the cocktail area, Mira made her way to the small stage. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She sat down on the stool, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the crowd. Nobody was paying attention to her. The guests were too busy finding their tables, greeting friends, ordering drinks from the bar. Conversations filled the air, loud and overlapping, a wall of noise that seemed impossible to break through. Mira was just background again. A decoration, something to fill the silence that nobody noticed. For a moment, the old fear came rushing back. Victor's voice echoed in her head. You are not solo material. You are background. That is all you will ever be good for. She almost believed it. She almost let the fear win. But then she took a breath. She placed her fingers on the strings, and she began to play. The first song was a soft cover, something familiar and gentle that blended with the chatter of the crowd. A few people glanced her way. Most did not. Mira kept her eyes on her guitar, focusing on the notes, letting the music flow through her without expectation. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was just doing what she had promised to do. The second song was the same. Pleasant background noise. Nothing more. Mira finished it and took a sip of water. The sun was starting to set now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The lights strung between the posts began to flicker on, casting a warm glow across the vineyard. Priya appeared at the edge of the stage, her eyes shining. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." Mira smiled and squeezed her cousin's hand. "One more song. Then I will get out of the way so you can enjoy your party." Priya laughed. "Take your time. This is your moment too. Your moment." The words echoed in Mira's mind as Priya walked away. She had one song left. The one she had not planned to sing. The one she had written in her darkest hours, finished just 2 nights ago on her mother's porch. The one that scared her more than anything else. She could play something safe instead. Another cover. Something easy and forgettable. No one would know the difference. No one would care. But Mira would know, and she would care. She adjusted the microphone. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the cool evening air on her skin, hearing the laughter and conversation all around her. 200 people, living their lives, unaware of the woman on the small stage about to open her heart. She began to play. The opening notes were soft, almost hesitant, like a secret being whispered in a crowded room. Mira leaned into the microphone and started to sing. Her voice came out different than it ever had before. Not polished, not perfect, but real, raw, full of every tear she had cried in the past 8 months. Every night she had spent wondering if she would ever sing again. Every moment of doubt and shame and silence. She sang about being thrown away by people who were supposed to believe in her. She sang about standing in the shadows, giving everything, and being told it was not enough. She sang about losing herself and finding herself again. Slowly, painfully, one broken piece at a time. Somewhere in the middle of the first verse, the conversations around her began to fade. She did not notice it first. She was too deep in the song, too lost in the words that had been trapped inside her for so long. But by the time she reached the chorus, something had changed. The vineyard had gone quiet. Mira opened her eyes and saw 200 people staring at her. Not glancing, not half listening, staring. Glasses frozen halfway to lips. Conversations abandoned mid-sentence. Children held still by parents who did not want to miss a single note. The silence should have terrified her. Instead, it set her free. She sang the second verse directly to them, to all of them. To every person who had ever been told they were not good enough. To every dreamer who had been laughed at. To every invisible soul who had been waiting for someone to see them. Tears were streaming down faces in the crowd. An older man near the front had his hand pressed to his chest like his heart was breaking. A young woman was gripping her partner's arm, shaking. Priya was sobbing openly, her makeup ruined, not caring at all. Mira reached the final chorus. The words poured out of her like a river breaking through a dam. Her voice cracked on the high note, but she did not stop. She let it crack. She let it be imperfect. She let it be human. When the last note faded into the evening air, there was a moment of absolute silence. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the vineyard exploded. People leaped to their feet. They clapped and cheered and screamed like they were at a concert. Not a wedding. Strangers embraced each other. The older man with his hand on his chest was wiping his eyes with a napkin. Priya was running toward the stage, nearly tripping over her dress, and somewhere in the crowd, a woman Mira had never seen before held up her phone. She had been recording the whole thing. Mira did not know it yet, but that phone was about to change her life. Mira woke up the next morning to 47 missed calls. At first, she thought something was wrong. Her mind jumped to emergencies, accidents, bad news. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand and squinted at the screen, her heart already racing with worry. But the messages were not about tragedy. They were about her. The woman at the wedding, the one Mira had never met, had posted the video online that same night. She had written a simple caption with it. Something like, "I went to a wedding and witnessed something I will never forget." This woman made 200 people cry. I still have chills. By the time Mira fell asleep, exhausted from the emotion of the performance, the video had a few hundred views. By the time she woke up, it had crossed 50,000. And it was still climbing. Her phone kept buzzing as she stared at the screen. Notifications piled up faster than she could read them. Comments, shares, tags. People she had not spoken to in years were sending her links. Strangers were finding her through the wedding hashtag. Her name, which had meant nothing to anyone for almost a year, was suddenly everywhere. Mira did not know how to process it. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in her pajamas, scrolling through the comments with shaking hands. Who is this woman? Her voice broke my heart. I am crying at my desk at work. I have watched this 6 times. She sings like she has lived every word. This is not just music. This is a story. Someone get this woman a record deal immediately. By noon, the video had 200,000 views. By evening, it had crossed 1 million. News outlets started picking up the story. Music blogs wrote about her. Entertainment websites ran headlines about the mystery singer at a vineyard wedding who made an entire crowd freeze in silence. And still, Mira could not believe it was real. Priya called her that afternoon, laughing and crying at the same time. You are famous, she said. My wedding video is going viral. And it is all because of you. My phone has not stopped ringing. Everyone wants to know who the singer was. I do not understand, Mira said. It was just one song. I did not even think anyone was really listening. That is exactly why it worked, Priya said. You were not performing for them. You were just being yourself. You were being real. And people can feel that. They felt you, Mira. The calls started coming in the next day. Music producers, talent managers, radio stations wanting interviews, television shows asking if she would appear as a guest. The same industry that had shut every door in her face was suddenly desperate to let her in. Mira did not answer most of them. She was overwhelmed, exhausted, unsure of what to do next. She had spent 8 months being invisible. And now the whole world seemed to be looking at her. It was too much, too fast. But there was one message she could not ignore. It came from Victor. He sent her an email 3 days after the video went viral. The subject line said, "An incredible opportunity." Mira stared at it for a long time before she clicked. The message was short, professional, almost friendly. Victor wrote that he had seen her performance and was impressed by how much she had grown. He said that Silver Dreams was planning a reunion tour, and they wanted her to be part of it, not as a backup singer this time, but as a featured artist. He called it a chance to show the world what she could really do. He did not apologize. He did not mention the day he fired her in front of everyone. He did not acknowledge the lies he had spread or the doors he had closed. He wrote to her like none of it had ever happened. Like she should be grateful he was offering her a second chance. Mira read the email twice, then she deleted it without replying. She did not need his stage. She did not need his approval. She did not need anything from the people who had thrown her away. Instead, she reached out to a small, independent music label she had heard about years ago. They were known for working with artists who wanted creative control, who cared more about the music than the fame. She sent them a simple message explaining who she was and what she wanted to do. She attached a few recordings she had made on her phone, rough and unpolished, but honest. They replied within hours. They wanted to meet. 2 weeks later, Mira signed a contract. It was not a big deal by industry standards. No millions of dollars, no guaranteed radio play, no promises of instant stardom, but it gave her something she had never had before. The freedom to make her own music, tell her own story, and build something that was truly hers. She started working on her album immediately. She wrote songs about everything she had been through. The years of standing in the shadows, the humiliation of being fired, the silence that had almost swallowed her whole, the cousin who believed in her when no one else did, the night at the vineyard when she finally remembered who she was. The recording process was slow and sometimes painful. There were days when the old doubts crept back in. Days when Victor's voice echoed in her head, telling her she was nothing. Days when she wondered if the viral moment was just luck, a fluke, something that would never happen again. But she kept going. She kept showing up. She kept trusting the music that had never really left her, even when she tried to lock it away. 6 months later, her album was finished. She called it Background, a title that would have hurt her once but now felt like a badge of honor. She had been background. She had been invisible, and she had turned that pain into something beautiful. The album was not a massive commercial hit. It did not break records or top every chart. But it found its audience. People who had seen the viral video. People who had felt invisible their whole lives. People who needed to hear that their voice mattered, even when the world told them it did not. Mira started performing again. Small venues at first, intimate shows where she could see every face in the crowd. She told her story between songs, sharing the hard parts and the hopeful parts with equal honesty. Audiences laughed with her, cried with her, sang along with her. She was not background anymore. She was not invisible. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. One night, after a show in a small theater, a young woman approached her at the merchandise table. She looked nervous, clutching a copy of the album like it was something precious. "I just wanted to thank you," the woman said. "I was about to give up on my dream. I thought I was too old, too late, too ordinary. Then I saw your video. I heard your story, and I realized that maybe it is not too late for me either." Mira looked at her, really looked at her, and saw herself from a year ago, lost, afraid, convinced that her voice did not matter. She reached out and took the woman's hand. "It is never too late," she said. "The people who try to silence you do not get to decide when your story ends. Only you get to decide that." The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. She thanked Mira again and disappeared into the crowd. Mira watched her go. Then she looked up at the ceiling of the little theater, at the old lights, and the worn curtains, and the imperfect beauty of a place that had given her a stage. She thought about everything it had taken to get here. The pain, the silence, the long nights of doubt, the cousin who saved her, the song that set her free. She smiled. It had all been worth it. Not because she was famous now, not because she had proven anyone wrong, but because she had finally learned the truth. Her voice had always mattered. She just needed to believe it herself.